When most people come to the Monterey Peninsula, they think of Pebble Beach, some great golf, and of course that world-famous 18th hole. But this weekend, IndyCar has invaded the area as ESPN Speed World welcomes you to the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Bank of America 300. And they have been pouring into this track throughout the morning, and the tension here is so thick you could absolutely cut it. 3 men, 1 name will remain at the end of the day, and that will be the champion. Now, here's the scenario on how that plays. For Jimmy Vasser, it's a 6th or better, and he clinches the championship. For Michael Andretti, depending on what Jimmy Vasser does beyond that, it's a 3rd or better, and he could have the championship. And for Al Unser Jr., again, depending on Jimmy Vasser, it is a win or nothing whatsoever.
And they're starting in 5th, 11th, and 13th spot.
Now, already, one of the points for the weekend has been given away. That's the one for the pole. It went to Alex Zanardi yesterday.
And he was the first time here for him. That's a big pole position, and what a beautiful track. Freshly repaved, new corners at 10 and 11, and that turn 6, the curbing has been giving a lot of people problems during practice.
So all in all, we're looking forward to one magnificent and exciting day as people really are going to have to work their way through this field if they want to get the championship. There's the map of the circuit.
And what a beautiful track it is, and you can see those dotted white lines. That's the old circuit. They've extended that hairpin another 300 feet, the pits, and what a great job they've done, and they completely repaved the entire track.
All right, so as the cars have already started their engines, we are ready for the start of the 16th and final PPG run of the year. Here's the grid. So here's the way they qualified with Alex Zanardi, the 6th pole of the year for the 96th Rookie of the Year. Alongside it's Brian Herta. He's finished in the top 6 in the last 6 races. The second row, Mauricio Gulgerman, his best starting spot of the season, and his teammate Mark Blundell alongside. This is his best starting position in an Indy car. Row 3, Jimmy Vasser, who looks to win his first championship, and Greg Moore. The 4th row, Andre Ribeiro and Christian Fittipaldi. Row 5, Bobby Rahal, who won 4 in a row here, 84 through 87, and Scott Pruitt. In row number 6, Michael Andretti, a 2-time winner here, 91 and 92, and Parker Johnstone. In the 7th row, Al Unser Jr., who's looking at his first winless season since 1987, and Gil DeFerrin, who won his first race in an IndyCar here last year. The 8th row, Robbie Gordon and Jan Magnussen. Row 9, Max Pappas and Paul Tracy. In row 10, it's Stefan Johansson and Adrian Fernandez. In row 11, Davy Jones, who flipped his car in qualifying yesterday, and Raul Boesel. In row 12, Roberto Moreno and Richie Hearn. The 13th row, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Hiroma Shushida. 14th row, Scott Goodyear and Juan Fangio. And row 15 is P.J. Jones. Well, there's the lineup, and here they are. Turn 2, the famous hairpin here. 186 miles, 83 laps. Zanardi, we already mentioned, is the pole sitter. Paul Tracy holds the race record. We expect the first stops, depending on yellows, to come at the 27th or the 28th lap. Now, Danny, let's take a look at the circuit in regard to where you can pass.
Well, the green and red show passing, but those are also tricky and dangerous spots up there. But those are the best opportunities. Just the green, that's a place where you'll see a pass on probably a slower car. You probably won't see a pass in there with somebody that's really quick. And that one red that was in the corner up there, that's been a problem all weekend long because of that curb that I mentioned earlier.
You take a look over the helmet of Michael Andretti, one of the contenders in the championship. We will be listening to his two-way radio throughout the day as he battles for the championship. And many people think he is very definitely a contender and can get the job done. On board, Bobby Rahal.
Right there, that curbing on the outside, that was what I was talking about. That's what gave people problems. Jimmy Vasser, Al Unser Jr., Alex Zanardi, a lot of people had offs there.
And speaking of Jimmy Vasser, here he is as he starts down through the famous corkscrew. And as they head off the final turn, we look at Robbie Gordon's car. And And Alex Zanardi also is carrying it on board for us today. You look from the pole position, the pace car has already begun to accelerate. They come down the hill through turn 10, the new turn 10, and head for that final right-hand left-hander, right-angle left-hander that will take them to the green flag. Zanardi, Herta on the front row. Green flag is just ahead of that bridge. Zanardi starts the acceleration. The rest of the field still coming off the corner. Looking for the green. The back begins to accelerate. Here we go. The championship is on the line at Laguna Seca as they scream through turn 1, down through turn 2 in the hairpin.
Well, when you saw that big puff of smoke back there, I think somebody accelerated too early, had to lock them up. Everybody trying to squeeze through that turn 2 and turn 3.
Zanardi grabbed the lead coming down into the hairpin, followed by Brian Herta, then Mauricio Guzman, Greg Moore. Christian Fittipaldi is off the course. That's just at turn 3. No contact. He's going to continue on, and he'll chase the field. You know, one thing for Christian Fittipaldi to have a problem like that, that problem occurs to anyone in the championship fight, and the day is really effectively done for them.
Well, it's true, but he did get back on the track at the back of the field, so he's got no damage. He could come back up through the field some, but he's going to need some brakes.
Down through the corkscrew, Alex Zanardi, followed by Brian Herta, Mauricio Guzman, Greg Moore. Mark Blundell is just behind Moore.
Boy, and Zanardi is just going away at the moment.
So Alex Zanardi picks the lead up on the start. Now here is the battle as Greg Moore begins to work on Guzman. They come off of the final turn on the pit straight now. Coming up the hill, here is Jimmy Vasser, anxious to get around Scott Pruitt.
Oh, they're making a couple of moves in there. You saw him kind of, look at that. Look at Scott. He cut right back in front of Vasser. Vasser's got to be careful. He wants to get by him, but he cannot take a chance, get his nose knocked off or get banged in there. That would play right into Michael Andretti and Allenser Jr.'s hand.
Well, what Jimmy Vasser is certainly thinking is he is in 7th place, and he needs 6th or better.
And I believe I saw right behind him was Michael Andretti.
Christian Fittipaldi comes into the pits. There's a report from the course marshals that Joe DeFerrin and Allenser Jr. had contact during that lap. Look at that for Christian Fittipaldi. He's going to have to get that left rear. I didn't see that. Must have gone down and then shredded after the spin.
Well, he could have picked up the puncture. Maybe he got punted a little bit by somebody else and tapped him and pushed him off, and it could have cut that tire.
Back at the front of the field, Alex Zanardi, and he has a tremendous lead. Look at that. Back to 2nd place, Brian Herta. And then that fight, Guzman and Greg Moore. This is the 11th run that Alex Zanardi has led this year, and the 8th race in a row.
But Paul, he is just going away. He is gone. We're on the 2nd lap here, and he's just checked out. He's gone.
Is that maybe part of a strategy? That he becomes the rabbit, tries to pull him away from Vasser?
Well, I don't think so. I think he's running his own race there. I think he's just got the bit between his teeth, and he's going, and that shows how well his car is working at the moment.
2nd place, Brian Herta. Guzman and Moore have resolved the conflict for the moment. Blundell is just behind. And then Scott Pruitt and Jimmy Vasser looking for his championship, his home track.
Whoa, who's this?
Wall.
That looks like Paul Tracy.
It is Tracy. Paul Tracy, and that's the area you were talking about.
No, that's the corner before. I'm sorry, that's the corner before right there. That's turn 5, right past our booth down here. He's up in here. Oh, he just got sideways there. We didn't see everything. Parker Johnstone right behind him. His day is done.
So Paul Tracy backs it into the wall, and we wait to see what this will do to the course status. Right now, there are yellow flags only in the area. We wait to see if they go full course, Jan Beekes.
The call from Paul Tracy was that he was hit from behind by Parker Johnstone. So that is the report that he radioed back to the crew, and obviously Parker now making his way onto pit road to check for damage.
So Parker Johnstone comes down into the pits. Paul Tracy's 6th DNF of the year.
That's a little bit of a reverse of what happened at Elkhart Lake. Those two guys got tangled up, but the opposite, Parker Johnstone went off.
And, of course, Paul Tracy got a humongous fine for his conduct at Elkhart Lake and put under observation for the remainder of the year. So you see the twin checkered flags come out at the start-finish line. That means that the pace car will come out and we will go to a full course caution. Jan Beekes.
Parker Johnstone came in. He's just about ready to leave, but now at the back of the car, they said stop. Now they're letting him go. The report from the course workers were that something was dragging underneath the car, but when they got it up on the air jacks, they looked underneath, and the crew said, looks okay to me.
Well, and Danny Sullivan just pounded me on the head. I've done it again. They're yellow flags that slow the cars down. We're waiting for the checkered flag. On board, Michael Andretti. A lot of people cheering for, well, all three in the championship. It's a hometown crowd for Jimmy Vasser. He's from San Francisco, about an hour and 20-minute drive to the north of here. Michael Andretti, a two-time winner here, very popular with the crowd. And, of course, Al Unser Jr., popular not just across the states, but around the world.
Can you describe it a little bit more for me? You don't think it's pressures?
Listening to
I think it is. I'm just sliding all over the place. I'm not sure if it's pressures. We'll find out in the next couple laps after it goes green. Pop one by one.
I think what he's talking about there, if the car's sliding around, he feels that the pressures, that means the tire pressures, haven't come up to the optimum pressure that they've got them set for, and that can cause the car to slide around. What he said was, I want to give it a couple of more laps to see if I can build them up and see if they come back up to where they want them to be.
They're getting Paul Tracy's disabled car off the circuit. His race and season is done. Alex Zanardi loses what advantage he had gained in a quick move at the front. Course caution, the field is bunched up. We're on the 5th lap. Now, they started 5th, 11th, 13th. Al Unser Jr. making the big move as he comes forward through the field. Jimmy Vasser fighting with Scott Pruitt falls backward, and Michael Andretti stays in position. Now coming back to green flag. And Alex Zanardi leads the field across the line, down through turn 1, that little kink, into turn 2, the hairpin. The advantage that Zanardi had gained earlier, gone away with the full course caution. Remember, too, that they restart in race order.
Yes, but he looks like he's pulling it out again. He looks like he's just, he's stretching it out, and that's only after 4 corners.
Alex Zanardi, who has already wrapped up the Rookie of the Year honors, as the rest of the field comes through. Pick out your favorite in there.
But that one rookie back there in that bright blue car, Greg Moore, he'd sure like to have a victory under his belt. Even though he's second to Zanardi, he'd still like to have a victory.
Short ride with Jimmy Vasser as Jan Beekes keeps an eye on Michael Andretti.
Yes, and we wanted to check in further into those radio communications between Michael Andretti's crew about the tire pressures. They said what they're looking for is the tire pressures to come up so the car will get more stability. They don't need more pressure at the front or the rear. They want all 4 to come up. If we get more green flag running, that should happen. So Danny was right on.
And while we watch Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr. is very definitely on the move. You're looking back from Jimmy Vasser's car in 7th place, and there's Al.
That cannot be the view that he wants to see in his rearview mirror. He does not want to see Al, who started the furthest back of all of them. Jimmy started 5th, Al 13th, and now they're running 7th and 8th.
They've given a penalty. It's going to be a drive-through penalty to Richie Hearn. Drive-through meaning he slows down, hits the pit speed, and heads through the pits. That's as a result of jumping the green flag on the restart. Turning onto the pit straight. Al Unser Jr. closes. That's Ribeiro. Just behind Little Al.
I'll tell you, I talked with Roger Penske last night, and he felt very confident about winning this race. And the only thing that Al Unser Jr. can do, he has to win this race today to really have a shot at that championship.
Well, and it's what we have said several times, that Roger Penske, actually his entire team performs, it seems to me, the best under this kind of pressure. And that's especially true, I think, of Little Al.
Yeah, and we've seen it all season long. He's kept himself in that championship hunt without a victory. Jimmy's had 4 victories. Michael's had 5 victories, and he hasn't had one. He's right there with both of those guys, and look where he is today. He's right behind Jimmy Vasser, obviously pressuring him.
And already Paul Tracy scores a winless season because he is out, Gary Gerald.
Yes, in fact, we'll update a couple of stories. There was concern prior to that last yellow that perhaps Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser Jr. had made contact. We talked with Jim Hall, who, of course, is in his last appearance in IndyCar racing before retirement. He said that their team was unaware of any problem. Gilles certainly did not indicate there was any contact. Also, a quick check in the Rahal pits for both Brian Herta, Bobby Rahal, and in the Team Target pits for Zanardi and Vasser. Everybody reporting they like the way their cars are working early. No problems at this end of pit road.
Well, Al Unser Jr. working on Jimmy Vasser. That is the fight for 7th place. Zanardi is the leader, followed by Herta, Guzman, Moore, Blundell, Pruitt. Nothing has changed at the front. First pit stops due about the 27th lap. 9 laps are complete here. PJ Jones, he had it looked like a big engine let go during the warm-up this morning. Now he's back into the pit area.
They're trying to push him, of course, up into his pit box. There, that doesn't look good for his day, and I know that they've got a lot of the folks from Toyota here. It's not exactly what they want to see.
Riding with the leader, Alex Zanardi. Nice clear circuit ahead of him, no traffic to impede the progress as he lays down the laps. He's running about the 71-second range in the last several laps, where it's not nearly what he ran in qualifying. But for carrying a full load of fuel, wanting to race on a hot day, not bad.
And also, you're pacing yourself somewhat. He's trying to run as good a laps as he possibly can. But if he's pulling away from the field, he's not going to push it any harder than he really has to.
So the scenario with the championship is Jimmy Vasser is 1 position from where he would like to be. You see him right there behind Scott Pruitt. There he is. He really needs to be in that position occupied by Scott Pruitt at the moment. But of course, for Jimmy, it can be a waiting game because he really doesn't have to push that position. And the assumption would be that I would guess maybe somebody at the front's going to have a problem.
Well, you would assume that, but we've had a pretty reliable year when it comes to the mechanical side. But one of the things, don't forget, he's in a different position than Al Unser Jr. He can finish where he is right now and win the championship. Those guys have to win. They have to be in front of him. So he can be a little bit smarter right now as long as Al Jr. stays behind him and Michael.
Exactly. It all depends on where Jimmy Vasser is in that whole championship fight. It's still fairly complex in the mathematics, Gary Gerald.
Yeah, Paul, and very little radio conversation. One conversation that was monitored, however, Vasser told the crew, I don't want to get too racy with some of those guys. That tells me that he is thinking conservatively, trying to protect. After all, it's $1 million at stake.
Well, Gary, you're absolutely right. And we saw him move earlier where he went to take a look underneath Scott Pruitt, and Scott came down on him, and Jimmy probably thought, wait a minute, if I get taken out, that opens the door for Michael and Al Jr., and he doesn't want to take that chance, especially with those guys behind him. He needs to finish this race.
Michael Andretti, no change in his position, started 11th, runs 11th right now. Zanardi at the top of the order, and again beginning to pull away with 11 laps of the 83 complete. The Indy cars have, of course, been resolving other battles this year. The manufacturers' fight between Honda, the Ford Cosworth engine, the Mercedes-Benz, and the Toyota. And that battle has, in fact, been resolved. And here's the way the fight looks. Honda has taken the manufacturer's championship over Ford Cosworth, Mercedes-Benz, and then Toyota. So that championship already in the pocket of everybody at Honda. Now, in the fight for the championship, the PPG Cup, Al Unser Jr. up to 8th place in his fight. Jimmy Vasser sits in 7th. Michael Andretti has not moved. Vasser really needs 6th. But as Danny Sullivan suggested, as long as everybody else is behind him, no problem.
No, and he's got to keep that thing going. He wants to stay reliable. If Al Jr. and Michael aren't a threat at the moment, he's not under the same pressure. If those guys get in front of him, then he's going to have to get a little bit more racy.
Now let's go pit side. Jan Beekes.
Well, Juan Fangio's day ended much sooner than you had hoped. Juan, what put you out?
We have a problem with the oil pressure, so I suppose something broke. We couldn't fix it, so that was it for this race.
What about the development in the future for Toyota for next year?
Well, I think TRD was really working hard during the full year, and I really appreciate all the job they did, because we really catch up from the beginning of the season to the end, and the same thing for All-American racers. So now all these springs will go into a new chassis and into a new engine. So 87, it will be a much more competitive year for us, and 87 and 88, I'm sorry, are going to be the years.
Juan Fangio's out, and to update his teammate, he had electrical problems, and he's back on course, Paul.
Okay, we were wondering about that, so thank you very much for that, Jan. I was going to ask you if we didn't get that far. Fangio out, P.J. Jones stays on the circuit. Zanardi, Herta, Gugelman, Greg Moore, Mark Blundell, Scott Pruitt, and then Jimmy Vasser. Look at this. Gil de Ferran slowing down. Down the hill, Gil de Ferran suddenly off the pace. Pit road is to the left, and that's where he's going.
Look at the smoke. Smoke coming out of the left rear of the car.
I would hate to think that Jim Hall's career as an owner ends
look
with
there.
a car going out, but it sure looks like that's going to happen.
Well, it looks like it's a flat tire for sure.
So tire, smoke, wheel bearing?
Could be a wheel bearing. They're both going in the back. It didn't look like the smoke from the engine that was coming out of the exhaust or anything. But that doesn't look a good sign. He's definitely going to be in there for a little bit.
Matter of precaution, they refuel the car. They'll have it all serviced and ready to go, should they be able to repair whatever. Here's Michel Jourdain Jr. as the IndyCar officials push his car down the pits, and he obviously has a problem too. Oh, he's okay. Worried me for him.
These guys have their engine cover off. Now it's going back on.
Gary, you're right there now.
Yeah, a rear suspension failure is the word we get from Jim Hall, and the day is over. Wheel comes off, de Ferran comes out.
Wow. Now that might have been, didn't they report that there's some contact earlier?
Yes, they did.
Gary, that he had made contact with somebody. I wonder if that's a result of that.
Back on board, Jimmy Vasser. Gary will check into that for us.
One of the things I see here is it seems like Vasser's now putting a little bit more pressure on Scott Pruitt. He would drop back a little bit, but now he seems to have closed on him again.
Jimmy Vasser working on Pruitt. Al Unser Jr. working on Vasser. Jan Beekes.
Yes, P.J. Jones, we told you, was back on course. Well, he's now back on pit road. That first change of the electrical boxes was not successful. Now they're going to try changing some other engine management components. So P.J. Jones losing time again in the pits.
We come back to the battle. We'll try to stay with this as much as we can, because this is the fight that matters at the moment. Scott Pruitt trying to hold off Jimmy Vasser. Al Unser Jr. right there. This could resolve the whole championship issue here today. Michael Andretti sits further back in 11th. Vasser needs to be in 6th if he wants to clinch the championship. They come around the slowing car now, Mark Blundell.
Mark Blundell slowing. He's got a problem too, because he was running up there in the front.
But that puts Vasser in the position he needs as they come around Blundell. Vasser moves into 6th place.
And look at this.
And Al
Look at
Unser
this.
Jr. is now challenging him.
Looks like maybe Vasser had a problem there, because look how much he's dropped back from Scott Pruitt. He must have made a mistake down there in the corner, gotten held up when he went around Blundell.
So Al Unser Jr. now working on Jimmy Vasser. Scott Pruitt's gotten a little bit away as they climb the hill again. 170 feet elevation change from the bottom at turn 2 to the top up here at the corkscrew.
It looks to me, just the way they're regrouping on the track right now, that Jimmy got held up a little bit going around, or maybe had a little mistake down there in that hairpin, because he dropped back. Now he seems to be pulling it back out. His strategy's got to be, I want to get around Pruitt to get that car between me, but I've got to be very concerned about what Allenser Jr. is doing. And on top of all that, I can't make a mistake in one of those passes and put myself out of this event.
Down the pit straight. Through turn 1, down to turn 2, the hairpin.
Yeah, I think they're bunching back up there again. I think that was just when they were trying to get by Mark Blundell, who obviously had a serious problem.
Last lap for both Vassar and Unser Jr. Jan Beekes, what's going on with Blundell?
Well, maybe you can see it. There's smoke coming from the cockpit. Mark Blundell called in and said that there was all kinds of smoke coming from somewhere in the cockpit itself. You can see the crew looking down in that area. I'm not sure where that could be coming from. Possibly fire extinguisher, because there's no fluids up there.
I think that's smoke. That could be an electrical if he's got smoke coming out like that.
That's true. Maybe
you get a big blast if it was a fire extinguisher. That looks more like a smoke, and mostly that's wiring in there.
I'll see if I can get a whiff of it, Danny, and see if it smells electrical.
Well, Blundell doesn't like it.
Yeah, he obviously thinks it smells. Plus, he doesn't want to get that in his eye. Well, if they think that they've got a problem in there that they can fix, he obviously wants to get back in the hunt. That's why we're also seeing him not jump out of the car.
Yeah, but look, he's been bright enough to take the precaution that they have of making sure that that wheel is out of the way in case he has to hit the eject button.
Well, 2 reasons for that also. That's one of them, but Ziggy wants to be able to get in there. That's his crew chief.
So Mark Blundell into the pits. Alex Zanardi continues his lead. 19 laps are complete of the 83, and the championship is still undecided. Back at Laguna Seca, California, the battle continues between Al Unser Jr. now and Andre Ribeiro. And as we look at the championship, Jimmy Vassar, with Mark Blundell's falling out of the line, moves into the position that he needs. And that would clinch a championship for him if he can simply stay there.
But look what's happening. Jimmy Vassar's close back up on Scott Pruitt. And look at Andre Ribeiro is trying to find a way past little Al, and he's lost a lot of ground to Jimmy Vassar.
You're looking from Bobby Rahal's view of the battle just ahead of him.
And there's a guy, Bobby, who's been on a tear of late. He's had a couple of second-place finishes in the last 2 races.
Alex Zanardi, with the merits of his pole position and where he's running right now, has managed, for the moment at least, to move up into second in the points. He was 4th in the points, but that's a very fluid situation. Gary Gerald.
Jim Hall, Gilles de Ferran, together for the last time. Jim, we start with you, saying goodbye to this sport that you've been such a big part of for more than 40 years. What are the emotions now with the disappointment?
Well, just disappointed in the results of this race. The car was running quite well, and I thought we were in a reasonable position. We probably didn't have a good shot at winning, but we were going to move up in the points, and I thought that was worth doing. And Joe was out there driving it smart, so too bad he had the failure.
What will you do? Will you be close to racing in any sense in the years ahead?
I didn't hear you.
Close to racing at all in the future years?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
All right. And Gilles de Ferran, was there contact with Al Unser Jr. at some point before you came out?
Yeah, it's right at the first turn, you know, just a little territorial dispute, nothing major, and his left rear touched my right front, but everything was fine. I don't think Al or I had a problem after that.
He goes to Walker Racing next season. Thank you.
How gentlemanly, a territorial dispute.
I like that term. I've never heard that, but I don't know if
that, by the way, applies to most wars as well. So there it is with 61 laps to go. The lineup with Zanardi out in front and well out in front, 3.2 seconds over Brian Herta, with the full course caution early on as we reach this point in the race. It will probably go 8 or 9 laps more before we see the first pit stops. The target team of Chip Ganassi is already reporting that they're able to go just a little deeper in the race before they start.
What I'm seeing here, too, with Al Unser Jr. is that obviously his car was working better on full tanks, and as the fuel load is getting lighter, his car's not handling quite a bit. I've seen him getting sideways out of a lot of the corners. It's obviously going a little bit loose, and I think that's why he's dropping back. Look at that gap. You can see it there to the cars in front. Bobby Rahal taking a look at both of them. He obviously wants to move up as well.
Rivera